yeah, anyway, we just met over Christmas, just kind of like briefly, and then we just kept keeping in touch. It was different at first because like we were both like pretty hesitant because I mean she lives here and I was in North Carolina, so it was just kind of hard to be like, oh, we were just both
Long distance
hesitant.
life.
Long distance, dude. But anyway, we just kept talking over FaceTime and text, and then I flew out. I was flying to a wedding in San Diego for one of my best friend's wedding, like late January. So this is maybe like 4 weeks after we've been talking, and I had like a 12-hour layover in Denver both ways because you fly Frontier, and
Hmm.
it's just the
Oh,
worst.
you
It's like,
fly Frontier?
dude, it's the cheapest, and but it's horrible. It's
It
like
is
flying on a
horrible.
lawn chair in the sky, dude. Um, yeah, so I had like a 12-hour layover, and I was like, hey, like I'll be in Denver like for this huge layover. We should like try to hang out. She's like, okay. So she like picked me up from the airport
Hmm.
at like like midnight. My flight got in so late. Midnight. We went to In and Out, got In and Out, went back to her apartment, ate and then we just like talked, and then she went upstairs to sleep, and I slept on the couch because she had to be to work the following morning at like 6
Mm,
a.m.
mm,
So then we woke
mm-hmm,
up. hmm We woke up, and then I took her to work. Well, not took her to work. I rode with her to work, and
mm.
then she did some stuff at work that she had to, and then she was able to like leave work. We went and grabbed coffee, and then she dropped me off at the airport, and then went to the wedding in San Diego, flew back through Denver for another like 8-hour layover. She picked me up on that layover. We went and grabbed lunch with like my sisters, which I was like, hey, I know you don't know me. We haven't been talking that long. Do you want to meet my sisters? And she was like, sure. So then we went to lunch with my sisters, and then she took me to the airport again. So that was like when we like first were like, okay, like we're interested in each other. And then yeah, after that we just continued talking, and we're kind of definitely more intentional with it.
Hmm.
And then she flew out to visit me in North Carolina on like a 4-day weekend, like right before I started the
Hmm.
prep course, which is like the 5 weeks of prep. It's called what's it called? Special Forces Preparation Course.
Hmm.
It's like 5 weeks you prep before you go to selection,
Hmm.
and every like 18 X-ray has to go through that program. Um, yeah, so she came out that 4 day before, like right before I started that, and that's when we like really hit it off. We went out
Wow.
to eat, went on a few dates, everything like that, and then um,
Sent me some pictures.
sent you some pictures, told you about it, and then we
Hmm.
weren't like dating after that. We were just like more intentional with it, and then we were like talking more and more, and then that's when I was like texted you and talked to you about it, and I was like, all right, I think I just need to make this official, even though it's like distance and we haven't even like hung out that much in person, but everything like leading up to it was like awesome and legit and just like kind of
Hmm.
like weirdly worked out and lined up.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, like I think this would work. And then I just asked her to be my girlfriend, and then I left for a month.
And you left for a month
And then
for
I left for a month
selection,
for selection.
which is
Correct.
the story I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But hey, so you guys have been together how long? All in
Like
all, just
two,
like the whole thing.
the whole thing. We've known like 5 months.
5 months. Hey,
Yeah,
all
five
right.
months. Yeah.
Well, everybody, this is my good friend Ethan. He is has recently finished selection for Special Forces in the United States Army. Correct?
Correct.
Did I,
That
s-
is
I, di-
correct.
I didn't say that incorrectly?
No, yep.
No.
Special Forces Assessment and Selection.
All right.
Yeah.
Ethan was on a little over a year ago, and he did one of our most popular episodes called Desert Seasons, where he told his story about surviving a really, really crappy, long winded window washing barista time of his life while he's
Yes.
waiting on the DEA and San Diego police to call him back. And now he is part of the United States Special Forces in the Army, which
Correct.
is
I'm
amazing.
in.
Come
I'm in that
on.
process. Basically, selection's like the application to get into the school.
Yep.
So I still got like a year of schooling to go to make
Mm-hmm.
it official, but it's like just like, hey, you're in now. Like you
Mm-hmm.
passed. You're through
You
the
have a, I didn't,
application.
I don't think I realized you had a year of school, but that's
Yeah, I
still,
have like everybody like when you're out there, everybody's always like, I mean, like before you go to selection, it's always just this like big mountain in front of you, because like
Hmm.
you hear everybody coming back and you hear the horror stories and you hear the people that didn't make it and you're like, oh, you made it, but like this dude didn't make it. This dude's a stud. So you're like, what the heck's gonna happen? And then when you get over that like mountain, like your world's completely different. It's like completely
Hmm.
changed. Just like everybody, like all the sergeants and cadre and instructors just treat you like a little bit different, more like a
Hmm.
human and not just like a some punk off the street who's
Yeah.
trying to like make it into like special forces. But
Yeah. Well, you
um,
still look skinny too from your.
dude, I'm staying at a good weight and I don't want to go any heavier. I just want to go down.
Remind me, you
Um,
said you lost 20 pounds, 30 pounds?
yeah, like 15 to 20. I went into selection at 240 and 235, 240, I don't know. And then I came out like around like 217, 220.
Yeah.
I like weighed myself. And I
When,
guarantee it, I lost the most amount of calories the last like 5 days
hmm.
of
Well, yeah, and
selection.
you're like a Captain America 240.
Yeah,
You're not like a
sort of.
cereal
Yeah.
bum on
I'm
the
not like
couch kind of
no, no, no. I'm not
240.
like a yeah. I'm just a
No, you're like Captain America.
I'm big 240. Yeah. But it hurts to run. It hurts to run. And when you
Because of
throw
your
like an
knee.
80 pound, yeah, and then when you throw
Yeah.
like an 80-pound rucksack on and you have to go like
Hmm.
12 or 16 miles, you just move a little bit slower than the dudes who
Hmm.
weigh like 180 pounds and can just
Hmm.
move really quick.
Uh-huh. Well,
So
I'm
they're
super
give and
excited.
takes
I can't wait to hear this story. I told Ethan as soon as he got back, he texted me. He's like, I got selected. And I was like, I need to hear this story immediately.
immediately.
And I also was like, well, don't say anything that would compromise what you just accomplished. But one, I
Yeah,
want to hear the story because I've known Ethan for a long time and I love him. Two, I've always been curious as what it's like to go through this kind of process. And then three, last time he was on this podcast, he was coming out of a desert season, trying to figure out what was next. And here we are. So if you
here we
remember,
are.
you can go back and listen to that podcast. He was in San Diego for a long time. He was a barista,
Hmm.
then he was washing windows.
Hmm.
Waited almost was it over a year for the DEI?
Yeah, it was like almost
DEI.
2 years. It was
Yeah,
like
almost
right when
two
I
years.
graduated, almost 2 years.
Yep. Didn't get
Hmm.
selected for the police force in San Diego.
Hmm.
So a lot of rejection there. Decided I'm going to the army. Got to the army and did something to your knee. You tore your meniscus, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a minor meniscal tear, and it was like so
Because
I
from
finished
jumping out of
basic.
an airplane, right?
Nah,
Sorta.
sort of, yeah. So it was also jumping like airborne school was all before jumping out of airplanes, doing all the running and stuff, and I had a prior injury. And then I was home on leave and I twisted it and I
Mm.
just like popped it.
So
I was like, well, that's not good.
all that to say, it was one thing after another of defeat, 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 and
Hmm.
he kept pushing through, and here we are today. So I can't wait to hear this
Yeah.
story.
Hmm.
Last time you had just finished special, or what had you just finished airborne school when we were
Yeah,
on?
I just probably like a few months before I'd finished
Okay,
airborne school
okay,
and I was out at Bragg.
you're at Bragg, which is in North
Correct.
Carolina.
Yep. Fort Bragg, North
Okay,
Carolina.
okay. Will you pick up the story for us then? Because you had to make a
Yes.
decision you because you were hurt, you had to like
Hmm.
finish a run or you had to finish
Yes.
something.
Yeah,
They were like,
this
you
is
either got to do this or you're not going home.
that's exactly right.
Or
So,
you're going home, yeah.
um,
So let's start
yeah,
there.
so when you get to Bragg, you're at like the school. It's like Fourth Battalion, and that's where like all of Army Special Forces train. So like the Green Berets are there, PSYOPs and Civil Affairs. Um, and if you get injured, you have like 90 days on profile to like heal, recover, do rehab, whatever you got to do to get back to training. And if you don't return to training, like so RTD return to training, at the end of those 90 days, they usually kick you out and are like, hey, come back in 2 years when you're healed. You can come back to like the school, you can come back to selection. So, excuse me, I tore my knee in July. So I was in, it's called SWIRT. It's like where souls go to die, like all the injured, broken people are.
What a name,
Um,
Swart.
SWIRT, dude. It's like Special Warfare Recovery Training. I don't know what the second T stands for. I didn't care to learn it. Um, And so if you're there past your 90 days, that's correct. You will get like RTD and sent to a regular Army unit, like a regular Army airborne unit. And they're like, hey, come back in 2 years. So yeah, we did the podcast and fast forward, I was still I hadn't been able to run. So, oh, sorry. To test out, you have to pass like an Army PT test, which is hand release push ups, a 2 mile run, and like 6 pull ups. So the push ups and the pull
A
ups, I was
two
like,
mile
okay,
run
fine.
in
And
14
it's
minutes, right?
14:24 is the minimum
Right.
for the 2 mile run. So I was like, hey, push ups and pull ups are fine, but I haven't been running in months, and it was getting close to my 90 days. And I was like, oh shoot, I better start running, even though the knees are still a little wacky. So I started practicing running, and this is like October. I'm like, I hit my 90 days, or like mid-October, late October, I think it was. I hit my 90 days, and I was like, all right, well, like I'm RTDing. Went up to the office, was like, here's my paperwork. Um, because actually, what they do is they sit you on like a med board with like the PA that's there, a few of the cadre, and they're like, hey, are we keeping this guy? What's the extent of his injury? Are we going to like allow him to do this or that, or are we going to kick him out? So anyway, it was either I RTD'd or I'd go to this med board, and I would have definitely been kicked out in the med board. But so I go to RTD, and like mentally, I was just like, dang, like, is this what I want to do? I haven't been running. It's been like 3 weeks that I've been training to run. And I ran a 2 mile like right before my test, and I was at 15 minutes. And I was like,
I
that's
remember
not
that
good.
because you called,
That's not good.
but then
So I
you
took,
also. Oh no, continue.
yeah, I took the first PT test, failed it, failed the run, was fine on the push ups and pull ups, failed the run. And I was like, well, that freaking sucks. So they give you one more try. So I was like, all right, I got one more try. We'll get this done. And I ran a bunch, as much as I could, like that week, because they give you a week to do it,
On a
and took the
broken
test.
knee.
Yeah, on like the torn knee. I was moving pretty slow because I was like not. Anyway, then I ran a 2 mile like on a Sunday, and the test was on Tuesday, and I ran it in like 14:22 or
14:24.
fourteen
No,
twenty two or something. Like
no,
fourteen
it's
twenty
14.
four was
Yeah, because you called me
it
and you
was
said, I just ran 14:24. And I was like, that,
yeah.
because I was like, wow, you made it, but now you got to do it again.
Yeah, so like so I take the test, push-ups, pull-ups are fine. I'm on the run, and like I hit my like literally cross the finish line at 14:24. I did like a leap to like get there, and I like my foot crosses it, and I like look at the sergeant, and he goes, "All right, Swift, that side," which is like where the people who passed went, and I was like, "Oh, thank God." So anyway, went back to training, and then just like basically survived because you sit in like this waiting period. It's called AT. It's like awaiting training. That's where you sit before you go to selection in the
Hold
prep
on.
course.
Pause. Pause.
Pausing.
You moved on before we can appreciate what just happened.
Oh,
Because,
sorry, we'll back it up.
well, you almost didn't make it. And the thing that you had to do to make it was run on a bum knee
Hmm.
so that on a time when you were ready to quit. You were
I
like,
was I I was ready to quit. I had
this is my sign. This is I can't do this. I've been hurt. There's one more thing,
hmm
and you were ready to quit.
yeah, I was
And you
ready. I wasn't I don't think I was ready to quit. I was ready to accept what was about to happen. But I think also internally, after failing that first PT test, I was like, oh shoot, like kind of like lost the motivation to like keep going and doing it.
hmm
So
yeah, and that was a proud moment for me because you you were calling. You were like, I don't know what to do,
uh-huh.
and I didn't.
I had so many backup plans. I had like, all
hmm
right, if I don't get this, like I was like, I'll go to officer candidate school, I'll be an officer, I'll come back as an officer. I was like,
hmm
I'll lateral transfer to the Coast Guard or something. I don't know. I
hmm
was like, I had all these backup plans.
hmm
And then yeah, the Lord, I got it through, and it was awesome. And I was so thankful I did that. I was like, oh,
hmm
thank you. Like that was just
hmm
one other thing that would have just been super crappy to have. But it
I
wasn't
think.
like good.
Well, I think the thing that made me so proud was you were either going to you had your backup plans, yeah, but you were trying to decide, are you going to just go ahead and go with the backup plans, or are you going to do the run and let the fate of the run decide what you were going to do? You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So if you pass the
Yeah.
run, you can still continue forward, but if you don't pass the run, you've got backup plans, and at least you tried. You gave everything.
Yeah. That
And
was my big thing.
when you decided to run, I was so proud of you. I thought that
I was
was
like,
just the greatest thing.
I got to do this stupid run.
You do
And
got to do this,
then,
and dude. You got beat up for years and years and years and
yeah,
years, and you're like, I'm not quitting.
yeah. That was the big thing.
Mm,
I think always sitting there, I was just like, all right, like I was like, I can't, I'm not quitting this. I'm not, no matter like, yeah, that whole situation. I was like, I can't quit this because then I don't know, when you quit things, it's easier to quit the next thing and then the next thing. And I was like, this is something that I did for myself, and I was like, I cannot let this slip through my fingers or
mm,
do that. So yeah, doing that run and then letting like the fate of the run decide. And I
mm.
pushed like as hard as I could at that time, and boom, I
You
had
made
that
it
14:24 right at the buzzer beater.
right at the
Buzzer beater
buzzer.
finish.
Yep.
So,
And then you went
um,
to what you
dude,
were just
and
saying.
then like, yeah, and then you go to like awaiting training, which is like where you wait. And they didn't have a prep class. Like I said, you have to go to like the special forces preparation course for 5 weeks before you go to selection. And so they didn't have one from November all the way till I went in February. So what we do is we just PT with like the cadres there. And literally, I called you on this too. My first day back, I tested out a sweat on Tuesday. They moved me over to the office on Thursday. On Friday was a 10-mile ruck. And I was like,
Which
you've
what
got
is
to
a
be
for? Can you explain
right, right, right.
what a ruck is
Basically, it's put your backpack on and then you go X amount of miles. You like either run it, you walk it. It's just like moving from point A to point B.
and how much does the backpack weigh?
It's 45 pounds dry, but then you have to have 6 liters of water. So that adds like close to 10 and 11 pounds.
So
And
60
I was
pound,
like,
50 to 60 pounds.
yeah, 50, 60 pounds. And my buddy and I look at each other and we're like, I was like, I haven't put my ruck on since like our last 12-mile ruck in basic. I was like, this is gonna hurt. And I was super worried about it.
Hmm.
And anyway, I went out there, did the ruck, passed the ruck. I had a pretty decent time. Like I was pretty stoked with my time for not like being able to run or do any of that for that
Hmm.
long. But
Hmm.
anyway, so it was just like, and I was like, all right, we'll see what the knee does. So yeah, those months was just like I want to say survive. I don't want to say survive, but I want to say survive with my knee because we were running close to like 30 miles some weeks. Like it was insane. Like Mondays would be like a 5 mile ruck in the morning. Tuesday would be we would work with like these civilians and do some like team building exercise. Wednesday would be a timed 5 mile run. You have to do it in 40 minutes or less. Thursday would be a ruck run. So we'd ruck 3 miles around this loop, drop our ruck, throw our tennis shoes on, and then run another three. And then Friday would be like a long ruck. So
That
it was
y'all run a lot.
we run and ruck so much. And like the knee was hurting, but it
Hmm.
wasn't limiting me from doing what I needed to do at the time. So I was like, all right, we're gonna keep going. And I think it like really taught me to know like, hey, there's a difference between being hurt and injured. Like the
Mm.
knee, like I asked a bunch of like the physical therapists and everything, and like the knee wasn't clicking, the knee wasn't limiting any motion. Yeah, like when I would run, I'd be like, yeah, that does not feel good. But I just kept going through it. So I did that like training cycle in that program for a long time, from probably like I'd say like early November all the way to December. December we finished with a 16-mile ruck, and I'd never rucked 16 miles before. The longest I'd gone was 12. Um, so I was stoked to do a 16 mile, and then like right after that 16 mile, we went home for Christmas for two weeks.
Can I ask how long does a 10-mile ruck typically take?
So like the standard, everything has a standard. Um, so usually, so the standards are a 2 mile run, time 5 mile run, and then a 12-mile ruck. So for the 12-mile ruck, you should be able to do it in 3 hours or less. So it's about 15 minutes a mile,
3 hours or less. Okay.
3 hours or less. So a 12-mile ruck will be about 15 minutes a mile. So if you're
Hmm.
within that, like you're fine, you'll make it.
Hmm.
Um,
That's still a good amount. That's moving pretty quick with weight on your back. I've done some
it's
hikes with my little girl
hmm
and her backpack, and that
yeah,
weighs about 40 pounds, and
yeah,
it takes me a couple hours to go about 4 miles.
yeah.
So maybe I should buy a ruck.
Yeah. I'm buy something, throw some weight in it, and just go for walks. But I do like it's called like the airborne shuffle.
Hmm.
It's like it's not like a full run. You're just kind of like shuffling your feet,
Hmm.
and you're just like going. And like there's so many different strategies to do it. Like obviously, like always, I always run the downhills to like gain
Hmm.
some momentum.
Yeah.
walk the uphills. I ran some of the uphills sometimes, and I was like, that is just stupid. I'm not doing that. Like these dudes are like passing me, and they're walking, and I'm like trying to run up this hill. Um, so yeah, you do all that, and then you like run the straightaways because like the straightaways are fine. So there's like a bunch of different. But dude, some of the guys like can walk can walk close to like a 12-30 mile pace just walking. So like they're taking huge strides and they're just like cruising through.
Dang, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's insane. I'm like, I don't know how you guys do that. Because like when I slow down to walk, like you wear your Garmin, and you're like tracking, I'm
Uh-huh.
like, dang, I'm at a 16-mile pace and I'm 16-minute a mile pace and I'm walking right now. So anyway, yeah, it's rucking's fun, but it also sucks. Yeah, it's just a good time.
It's a
You're just
good
out there
time.
by yourself. It's like
Hmm.
definitely a mental grind
Hmm.
because you can't listen to any music
Hmm.
or anything like that. So it's just like you and your thoughts grinding,
Hmm.
and it goes by faster than you would think, especially like when you hit the turnaround point and you go back.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So yeah, that leads me to like January, and then off on that rucking tangent. January, and then yeah, still doing a bunch of running, still pushing through on my knee. Was still like worried about it, but just kept going on it. And then
Hmm.
we started the prep course in February, and yeah, five
The prep
weeks
course for selection.
for selection. Yeah, so all like 18 X-rays, 18 X-ray, 18 series is like the special forces title, and then the X is just like you don't know your job yet, and it's basically where they like pull guys like me off the street and go straight to special forces training. Otherwise, you could join the army as like a regular job, like a cook or an infantry or an engineer or anything like that.
Hmm.
Go to your unit for a few years and be like, I don't want to be in the regular army. I want to try special forces, and then you'll drop a packet. So those are the two ways to go.
Hmm.
But the 18 X-ray pipeline is pretty popular. So it takes like guys like off the street like me, just right out of college, zero experience. Like you said, was working in washing windows, coffee shops, and coaching CrossFit, and then boom, going forward. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, so then the prep course is a pretty structured thing. It's 5 weeks long. You do PT every morning. You do your runs, and then every week you do a ruck. So you like build up over the 5 weeks. You do a 4 mile ruck, 6 mile, 8, 10, 12, and you just do PT. You learn how like pack. Like they give you a ruck packing class. So like the army has issued us like these big backpacks with for all of our stuff.
Hmm.
So they show you how to pack like your sleeping bag, how to pack all your wet weather gear, how to pack your uniforms, your socks, your boots, all the stuff you need.
Hmm.
They just pack it up. So they just teach you how to do that. Then the
Hmm.
biggest like thing the prep course is huge for is land nav. And so like land
Land
navigation, they give
navigation. Yeah.
yeah, so they give you a week of class on how to do land navigation. So you like sit down, you do all these PowerPoints. They give you a compass map, protractor, all the other stuff, and then they teach you how to do it. They teach you how to shoot azimuths. They teach you how to do pace counts. They teach you all this stuff. And then after those classroom times, then you go out in the field for about 3 days, and then you conduct land navigation out in the field. So in the prep course, it's just you sleep out there at night, and then they give you like these different points, and it's like a 10-digit grid. So you like plot the grid on your map, and then you figure out your route, and then you walk to the point. So you do that for about 3 days, and that's like really good practice because I was not good at land nav, not good at land nav. So yeah, the
Hmm.
practice out there with the prep course was huge for me. It just like helped me build my confidence of like walking in the woods by yourself, going through it, and then just like trusting where you're at, trusting like your plan and everything going forward.
Hmm.
So yeah, and then the last week you do like a test out week. It's called yeah, it's like the test out week. So we do a PT test in the morning. We do our timed 5 mile run, and we do our 12 mile ruck. So we do all those things that final week. And like for the timed 5 mile run, it's like 40 minutes or less. And I'm still like, I'm running like 38s and 39s. I'm like still right there while like other dudes are running like 35. So I'm like,
Hmm.
you guys have fun with that. But anyway, so I got through,
And you had to be done by 40 minutes?
yeah, 40
Yeah.
minutes. Or else like if you fail anything in the prep course, like a ruck, a run, or a PT test, like you get recycled to the next class. So it just delays your time longer and
Hmm.
longer.
Recycled. What a term.
Recycled. You
Yeah.
get recycled. They're like, you
Yeah.
suck, you're recycled, go back and try it again.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, finished the prep course and then we had a 4 day weekend. So we finished on like a Thursday, then we had a 4 day weekend over St. Patty's Day,
Hmm.
and then off to selection that Tuesday.
They let you take off St. Patty's Day weekend? That seems like
Yeah.
that's a test.
So we had a 4 day weekend and it was clutch because it just allowed us extra time to like get our stuff for selection ready. And
Hmm.
like during the prep course, like the last 2 weeks, like I was driving around getting like I had the packing list for selection and driving around getting everything I needed,
Hmm.
extra uniforms, different. You had to get like this engineer tape sewn on your uniforms for like your roster number when you get out there. Like you don't wear any names, you don't wear your rank, you don't wear anything to identify you. When
Hmm.
you're out at selection, you're known as candidate. That's what you're known as, candidate.
Like
And then
everybody is candidate?
yeah, everybody's like if especially if like the cadre is talking to you, it's like candidate
Okay.
265. That was my roster number. I was 265.
Mm.
So if they needed to ask me anything, they'd be like 265. What are you doing? Candidate 265. Da 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 da. So yeah, we had those 4 days, get prepped for selection, and then we left for selection on Tuesday morning. We all lined up. All 300 of us were lined up outside. There was 300 guys there waiting to hop on the buses to go out to Camp McCall where they conduct the selection. So, and
And
that's the
selection
most.
is 3 weeks.
Selection is 3 weeks long, 21 days, three different phases.
And you can't
Gate
talk
week.
about that, right?
No, I mean this is all common knowledge. So you have
Okay.
gate week, which is like your first week, which is where you do like all your physical activities like PT tests, obstacle courses, runs and rucks. That's like the whole first week.
More runs and rucks.
Always,
Are the
always runs
obstacle
and
courses
rucks.
really hard?
No, dude, it's so fun. I had a blast on the obstacle course
Did
because
you?
it's just like, yeah, it's so much fun. You're climbing ropes, you're sliding down ropes, you're climbing ladders. So maybe the window washing helped because I wasn't scared of heights because I just like rode
Yeah.
up these ladders,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
I
Um,
mean, I've tried to climb the nets, and I think I'd rather do 100 pull-ups than climb one
the
of those nets again.
dude, the nets are kind of a pain in the butt,
Yeah.
but they're doable, but they're fun. So like you'll climb, yeah, there's just all these obstacles you climb, and if you're scared of heights, like you're kind of screwed.
Hmm.
You're pretty screwed.
How how high?
You're probably maybe like um the highest one you're on would maybe be like 20 feet. It's not bad. Not bad at
Wow.
all. Still,
Okay.
still kind of up there,
So
but not
yeah,
bad.
nothing like you're not that high in the air, but you're high enough to.
No, no. So yeah, the obstacle course was a lot of fun. You did that all at Gate Week, and then Gate Week's a lot of just gear maintenance. So like, there's all this like when you get the selection, there's all these like instructions you have to follow about like how your gear needs to look. Everything needs to be tied down. You need to have your roster number on everything.
Hmm.
All these things. So like during Gate Week, you're getting all that ready. So you're like you're in the barracks with all the guys and you're like writing your roster number down on everything. You're writing it on the sleeves of your shirts. You're like tying down your canteens to your flick. Um, you're tying down a bunch of stuff to your ruck. Like everything has to be tied down. Everything has a certain like procedure and way to go because if like cadre catches you and it's not how it's supposed to be, you could get dropped. And like they'll drop dudes left and right for little things like that.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, that was gate week. And then second week is way navigation. So we get bussed out to field training area, and then we do 3 days of like exercises where we're just like um, practicing, like getting used to the terrain, getting used to all these things, walking around. They do like a terrain walk with you, and then so you just get used to like where you're walking and where you're going and everything like that. And then you do land nav, and then the final
Is it
two
in the
days are land.
mountains?
No, it's in the woods, the backwoods in North Carolina.
Okay, so it's relatively flat but very dense forestry.
Yes. So luckily we went at a great time, and I was like super blessed. I went in that class because like the forestry wasn't overgrown and green.
Mhm. I
You
was
know?
like, that'd make it real hard to know where you're going.
Yeah. When like the summer classes go, they get destroyed in land nav because it's so hard to see where you're going with the forest
Mhm.
and the dents. So
Mhm.
yeah, and then the final 2 days of land nav are like the big test that you have to pass. It's like the final thing, and then if you pass um, those final 2 days of land navigation, and it's like all day. You're walking in the woods all day from the morning, like early in the morning to like late in the afternoon. You're walking around trying to find your points.
Mhm.
And then those are the final 2 days. And then if you make it past that, you go to team week, which is the third week. And that's where you work with like a team of like 10 to 12 dudes. I think you start with like 16 guys, but dudes will quit on like some of the events, like left and right.
Really?
And you do that for 4 days. Oh yeah, it's insane. Like team week is where selection is made. Like gate week, pretty easy as long as you don't fail any of the events and you don't mess up. Easy. Land navigation, a little bit harder as long as you're good with land nav. So like I was nervous going into land nav, but I didn't do well at all on my first day. So you have to find a certain amount of points, right?
Mhm.
And over the final 2 days,
Mhm.
day one found 1 point, was destroyed, like horrible day. Day two went out, found all the points I needed to, was like
Mhm.
good to move on. So I was stoked with
Mhm.
that.
Yep.
Yeah. So then excuse me, week three is the team week, and that's where you just carry heavy stuff all day.
I was gonna say what I'm imagining from the video I've seen is you doing 12 guys in a row doing sit-ups in the water with a log on your chest.
No,
Like
so
that
that's
that's like what I'm imagining. And then you get up and you carry the log on your shoulder through the water.
yeah.
And
So luckily, we're not the seals, so we don't do anything with water. So we're all on dry land.
uh-huh.
But yeah, you carry heavy stuff all day. Your ruck's on all day, and it weighs at this point it weighs probably close to like 75 pounds. I'd say in total your ruck, because we have to throw in like MREs, so we have to throw in like our meals ready to eat and like the plastic things.
Mhm.
So you have to have six of those in your ruck, and those probably add another like 10 pounds. So you have that, you have all your water, and then all your stuff in your ruck, and you pack like extra things because you want to have extra things out there at land nav,
Mhm.
like paracord, duct tape, all this extra stuff you got to have.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, team week. I mean, you start at 5 a.m. and you finish whenever you're done with all the events. So if that's you start each day at 5 a.m. no matter what. So if you finish at like 3 a.m., guess what? You got like 2 hours of sleep. If you finish at 4 a.m., you got an hour of sleep. So it's just like, and then you do
Did
that
that
straight.
happen?
Yes. So this is like, this is where the stories will come in because like I flew over those phases, but there's like so much in between each one of those phases.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, man, team week was wild. I'll back it up to like land nav. So like you're walking in the woods, right? And you have like all these things in place for emergencies, especially if like you break your leg, you get poked in the eye by a stick, or you see a snake and you get bit by a snake. And I was like, oh man, geez, I hope that doesn't happen. No, it happened to a friend of mine. He got bit by a snake and they pulled him because
What
you're
kind
like
of snake?
a cottonmouth, dude. And like, cause you have to cross at some points to land nav, you have to cross like a river. And he was crossing the river and got bit by a little snake. Yeah. His whole entire left arm swelled up.
It bit him in the arm?
It bit him in the hand. Yeah. Whole entire hand swelled up. They rushed him to the hospital. He came back and he was like holding his chest like this. He's
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, I'm good. Like they said I was fine to go. Hand's still swollen. Nothing's bothering me. So he started day two of land nav, the final day, and then I never saw him again. He was just gone. I was like, dude. And then earlier that morning, I saw a snake when I was crossing a draw, and my
Mhm.
heart stopped. So like draws are like the worst thing ever. They're the worst thing ever. It's just like
Mhm.
it's like one of the major terrain features on a map. So you like learn about all the different terrain features and how to read the topographic map and the elevation
Right.
changes and all that stuff.
Right.
So the draws like when there's like two elevations and it goes down to the middle and there's like streams and water runs through, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just
Uh-huh.
builds dense vegetation, you know?
Yep.
And they could be really small or they could be massive,
Mm-hmm.
huge. And day one, I was walking through and I was like, well, there's this big draw in front of me. I was like, there's an azimuth I got to hit, which is like the direction based off like your magnetic north and your true north. You like do all this addition to like get to magnetic north and then you follow your compass that way. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, all right, well, it's on that. And I start going through this draw and it is thick, dude. Like thorns, branches in front of me. I'm like getting caught in the head by like thorns and like yanked back. My ruck's getting caught on like everything. You like hit your shin on all these branches and dead trees. But anyway, I was in that draw for probably close to like 3.5 to 4 hours, still in the draw, like fighting it. And at some points, I was in like waist deep water. I'm like, the water's like there's like sludge and mud underneath. It's like almost a swamp because it just like sits there.
Yeah.
So like my feet are like stuck, and I'm like trying to like lift my leg up and like take the next step and do all this stuff and like find dry ground where I can like try to meander through. But dude, it is just gnarly. Your hands will get all cut up from like thorns and vines. Like dudes would rip their pants completely open because they'd get caught on like thorns and it would
And
just
you
rip.
saw a snake in this 4 hour
Yeah, I
vine
saw.
infested.
Yeah, because it's water. It's water, and like I'm walking through it, and I was like, "Oh man, I really hope I don't see a snake." And then I'm like walking through, and you carry a rubber duck, which is like a dummy N16, just like a rubber 8 pound M16. You know, you have to carry it
Uh,
everywhere.
yeah.
And I just see it, and I'm like in waist deep of water, and I was like, "Well, I can't go anywhere. So if this snake sees me, like, I guess I'm fighting this freaking snake with my dummy rifle." But it was terrifying, dude.
You didn't have a
Oh,
knife or anything?
I had a Leatherman on my belt, but I wasn't gonna like pull it out and like try to stab this
You didn't have
snake,
like
you know?
you didn't have
No, I
a
didn't
six
have.
inch blade or anything like a
No,
survival knife or a
no, I didn't bring one. A lot of guys did. I didn't bring one. I was like, I'm
uh,
never going out there again without one. I learned a lot.
yeah. I was like,
Um,
you need a hunting knife or
yeah, like a John Rambo knife, dude. So,
yeah for all them snakes. So how long did you
oh
stand there just
snake.
with the snake watching you?
No, the snake slithered by. It didn't bother me too long, but it just stopped me. But yeah,
Hmm.
dude, at some points I like stood in the water and I was like, well, I don't know how to get out of here. I'm like crawling, trying to like take my ruck off. It was a mess. That was probably like my craziest land nav story. Like it was
Hmm.
just like, wow, that really sucks. I don't
Yeah.
wish that on my worst enemy. Draws are they're horrible. They'll like eat you alive.
Yeah. And what happened during
Um,
team week?
dude, so team week is just like, yeah, you have so the first 2 days you have like one team, like the same guys those first 2 days, and then the last 2 days you switch and do another team.
Hmm.
So yeah, like I said, it's however long it takes you to finish all the events through the day is however
How
long
long
it
it
takes you.
takes?
It,
Yeah.
it dictates how much you can sleep. So like the first day my team and I got back, there were 10 teams that started team week. So at this point, like I said, we started selection with 310 guys. By the time we hit team week, we had 120 dudes.
Wow.
Yeah, so they
Okay.
drop guys. They drop guys in gate week for failing different events. Dudes will quit in the middle of the night. Like
You
literally,
said
they'll just like,
310 down to 120?
yeah. So dudes will quit in the middle of the night. They'll just be like, yeah, this isn't. I'm not doing this. And then we'll like, you'll never
Wow.
see them again. So there were 10 teams starting team week with about 16 dudes. Day one, we had two dudes quit on our team during the first and second like part of team week. They just quit. They're like, "Yep, I'm out.
They're
Get the
out.
truck." Yeah.
And you still have to finish your activities even with even a smaller team?
Oh yeah. And
Okay.
sometimes they'll pull the equipment, like the equipment you have. Sometimes they won't, and you'll have to carry their equipment. Just like, thanks a lot, dude. Thanks for making me carry more stuff. Um,
Jeez.
so first day we got back at like 6:30. We were in third place out of 10 teams. So we were in third place. We were like, oh, this is sick. We're like, this is not bad. We're chilling.
Hmm.
So we got the rest of the evening to basically just kind of like stretch, recover, eat, you know.
Hmm.
So we're like, yeah, day two, we're going out. Our team, we're stoked. We're like, yeah, we won't have that happen again. Whew, dude, day two wrecked us. Just destroyed us. Like like oh my God, it was so bad. I mean, we were just like carrying things for so long. Um, Heavy things with your ruck, throwing like telephone poles till our telephone poles evolved,
I
all this
thought there might
stuff.
be.
Yeah, they got to throw one of those in there.
Did you do sit-ups with a
Um,
telephone pole? Tell me you
no,
did.
we never had to do sit-ups. We never had to do sit-ups.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah, like all day, and we didn't get back. The worst, dude. This was the worst. Like this was like my worst selection thing. It got so day one of team week, it was like 85 degrees. Dudes are like heat catting, which are they're like getting rhabdo because it's so hot and they're carrying all this weight and they're just like
Mhm.
collapsing from the heat.
Mhm.
And then within less than 24 hours, um, kids were getting hypothermia. The weather switched like this, and
Really?
oh my God, it was miserable. So like the rain started at 7 p.m. on day two of team week. My team had just gotten to like our final stretch we had to do. We still had like another 3 miles. From 7 p.m., it rained pretty much nonstop. The wind, and like when it's like, it's not like out in Colorado where it's like a dry cold. It's like,
It's
it was
humid.
only, it's
Yeah, it's
humid and the
freezing.
wind will blow and the rain is horrible. And it was only
Mhm.
like 44, 45 degrees,
Yeah, but it
but
feels
just
like
with
it's
like the,
20. Yeah.
oh,
That's how it is up here
so
in Boston when it rains.
yeah, I can imagine. So the, the, yeah, so Tuesday night, I say Tuesday night. My days are all messed up. It was like a Thursday night. Day two of team
Mhm.
week. Like
It was
day two of team week.
a blur.
Started raining. Blur. 7 p.m. Everything literally is a blur. You lose track of any sense of the real world.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it was so cold. Kids were like, anyway, it took us till 2:30 to get back. 2:30 in the morning, and we're soaking wet. You like you can't dry off. Like, and like when I mean like 12
You
dudes just like shivering.
so you went from 5 a.m.
Yeah.
in the rain, the freezing rain, with 12 dudes until 2:30 a.m.
Yeah, so it
And
didn't start raining. We started 5 a.m. day two. It didn't start raining until 7 p.m.
okay, but you still sat through 7.5 hours worth of rain,
Yes.
and then had to
Yes.
sleep. You got to sleep for 2 hours,
We got an hour of sleep.
1 hour of sleep, and
We
then you
got
woke
one
up
hour
to
of
do
sleep.
it again.
Yes.
I don't even think I would have laid down for sleep. I think I would have just been like,
No, we were so cold. Like it was this was like when you're like sucking that bad with like your friend because I had a few of my friends on that team because
uh
it's just like randomly selected. When you're sucking that bad, it is just like I just kind of started laughing because I was like
huh.
what am I doing? Like this is the craziest thing I've ever done. Like we're shivering and we're trying
Uh-huh.
to talk like this and we're trying to push this thing and like nobody can talk. Like everybody's so cold. Like they don't let you wear any rain gear. You can't wear any rain gear. And like you're dripping wet. You're soaking wet. Your ruck weighs like 1,000,000 pounds now because the rain waterlogged it. At one point, our cadre, because they walk with you, they're like called a walker. They walk with your team. So because they're like taking notes and like assessing you and they're writing you down and everything. Like 265 did this. I liked that. That's probably not what they write, but they're just like 265 this guy sucks type thing.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, it was like my buddy and I, Tyler, we looked at each other and we just like kind of started crying because we're like, this sucks so bad. Like we just want to go home, but we're like shaking. It was a trip. But yeah, they let us like change our t-shirts into a dry t-shirt and a dry top. And
Hmm.
I was sick for like the 5 minutes we were warm. And then now all of
Probably
our
felt
uniforms
so
were
good.
soaked. It felt so good, man. I had never felt better in my life than putting on a dry t-shirt. Um,
And so,
so anyway,
is that third week? Is it 5 days or is it 7 days?
it's 4 days of team week, and then you have the trek, which is like a long ruck you have to
A
do.
long road over 3 days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
over one
Wow.
day. It's
Over
like a
one
one
day.
day thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was day 2 of team week. We got back like at 2 a.m. We went and did peers, like peer evaluations. So like after your team, you like sit down on a computer and you like look at all the roster numbers of your team and you rate them because peers is a big thing during team week. So you rate like your team, like this guy on my team. I don't remember anybody's roster number, but like 101, he sucked. I didn't like him. I mean, you just like write this stuff, and it's 2 a.m. and you're tired and you just want to go lay down. And like I was literally falling asleep at the computer because it's a warm room. And it's the first time you've been warm in like 8 hours.
Yeah, that temperature
And
change I bet wanted to like
oh,
put you out.
dude,
On
and like
top of
kids are just
the yeah.
like you're just clicking and just like nodding off. And it was bad. So then we got an hour of sleep. I put on some like long john underwear and like a top, to just like warm up.
Hmm.
And that hour was like it was a very restful hour, I will say, because you're just like your body's so tired and it just needs it. And then you wake up and then you're like, oh my God, here we go, day 3. I was like, only 2 days left. Only 2 days left. Um, so and then it didn't stop raining on day 3. So it stopped raining for like the morning, but then like right around lunchtime it started pouring rain again.
Like
And
Forrest Gump out there.
dude, straight up.
It rained from the
And
side. It came from, sometimes up
straight
underneath.
come up underneath. That's exactly it. But it didn't stop. Um, so day 3 was wild because so many kids were getting hypothermia and cold catting that they pulled us out of the field. Like they stopped day 3 of team week because like 30 some dudes just like collapsed and got cold catted, and like got hypothermia
Wow.
because it was just gnarly. Everybody was soaking wet. Like, and I was at the point like, oh, I missed a pivotal part.
Now you can go
I was at
back.
like Tuesday night, not Tuesday night, whatever. Day 2 of team week that night was like the coldest ever. So like
Hmm.
day 3, I was like, all right, this is just cold. This is gonna suck. Like I know we'll be okay. We just got to keep moving, because I'd like already done it for 8 hours. So I was like, okay, we
Hmm.
just got to like keep moving. This will be fine.
Hmm.
But yeah, they pulled us out of the field. They pulled everybody out training at Camp McCall. There was a bunch of other schools there. They pulled them out of the field because kids were getting I say kids, but guys were getting hypothermia and just
Hmm.
freezing. So like they let us dry all of our clothes off, all of that. So that was like the end
How
of
long did
day
they
3
pull
of
you out
team week.
for?
7 or 8 hours.
Oh wow. Were you allowed
Yeah.
to sleep or anything, or was it like, hey, sit here awake?
Yeah. I mean, like you weren't allowed to sleep, but like we slept. You slept. They say that all the time. Like no sleeping, dude. We slept, 100%. Like guys are just zonked, just out. It's so funny. It's funny when you like live with or you experience all that with like 300 dudes. It's just
Yeah.
like, dude, it's a trip.
You guys are
Showering is
like
a lot of
you guys are like bonded.
yeah, showering is a lot of fun with 300 dudes and like a massive shower. That's fun, and you have like 20 minutes to do it. That's a good time. Um,
I hope everybody listening doesn't take that the wrong way.
yeah, yeah. Don't take that the wrong
Like,
way.
don't take that the wrong way. That
It's just fun hanging out, but
naked
um,
with a bunch of dudes in the shower.
just
Yeah.
just fun things, dude. I've never like anyway. I won't go there, but so that was the end of day 3. But like I said, the night of day 2, I was so cold. I don't think any other time I had thought about like, man, I want to quit. Like I was having fun. Like out at land nav, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I've wanted to train for. This is what I've wanted to like accomplish my whole life. I was like, I'm stoked to
Mhm.
be here. I'm gonna give it my all, like everything I got, and like leave the rest in the Lord's hand, you know? And so, but the night when it was first raining for us and we were like freezing and like dying, I had never like questioned the Lord's existence before or like, but I like, dude, I didn't know how to pray. And like, I literally, like, we had our rucks off and I like, am walking over to my ruck to like put it back on. And I'm like, Lord, if you're real, please help me right now. Like, and it wasn't like one of those things where it was like, I never questioned he wasn't real because I know he's real and like
I know
he's so
what you
prevalent in
mean.
my
You're
life.
like,
But like, I'm like, I need a miracle right now. Like, bring down fire like Elijah. I wanted to like just being so desperate for like so much help. And dude, all I could say was help. That's all the words that came out of my mouth. I was just like under my breath, I was like, help, help. I couldn't even say like Lord help. I was just like help. Like
Like,
I need
please,
help. Please help, help. And I
please,
just
please, don't abandon
help.
me, please.
Don't leave me here. And I just like threw my ruck on and just kept going and we made it through. So and then day four was like everybody was, you can tell it's like day four, it's the last day. Everybody's kind of shutting down because like, oh, I just have to get through this day. Oh, and I had a new team on day three and four as well. So you're
Mhm.
like getting used to the new guys, working with dudes who like freaking suck and just like cannot carry their weight and dudes who can. So it's like that hard like conflict. This one dude couldn't even use his right hand. He got like ruck palsy. Happens to a lot of
Ruck
guys.
palsy.
Yeah, it happens to a lot of guys
The
with
weight
like
just shuts
yourself.
down the nerves in their arm and their hand doesn't work anymore.
100%. No hand. You have one hand because like they're just carrying their ruck all the
Yeah.
time. So yeah, the team was good, but it was also like we had like half the team was like a bunch of studs, and then half of the other team was like kind of whack, and it was just like pain in the butt. So it's like hard to do that when you're like trying to carry this because like some of them you could tell were putting out, some of them weren't, some of them didn't want
Mhm.
to be there, or were just
Mhm.
trying to like skate by.
Yeah.
But
How many people got selected of the, if you I don't even know if you can answer that. Of the
yeah,
120 that were left, how many people ended up getting selected?
yeah. So they so like dudes quit so much during the rain and the cold. Like we had one guy on our team. This was hilarious. We're all out there. Kadri drives around a lot, like trying to be like, hey, who wants to quit? Like VDub, which is like voluntary withdrawal. They try to get people to do it all the time. And um, it's raining. This Kadri rolls up and he goes, candidates. He's like talking to our whole team. He's like, it's cold. This job isn't for everybody. Who wants to quit? I don't want to keep coming out here. And like everybody's like looking around and we're like, no, Sergeant, we're good. This one dude, he goes, yeah, I quit. And he just like leaves, gets in the truck, and's gone. I was like, all right, dude, sick. Um, but anyway, they do a final reaper. We call them reaper formations. That's where they line everybody up. Sergeant stands in front of us on like this platform looking down on us. And he goes, candidates, if I hear your roster number, make a separate formation. And he'll just like read off roster numbers. And whatever roster number he reads off, like those dudes are dropped. So you can go through the whole 21 days of selection, finish every event, do everything, and then get dropped to the final day and not selected. And that was like,
Wow.
and like, so when they did that, like everybody's so nervous. Oh, you're so nervous. You're just like, I'm like, well, we'll see what happens. And like, I was like the night before, I was like talking to a few of like the Christians I had met in selection and everything. And I was like reading through Philippians, Romans 8, like all things work together for the good of that. And I was like, all right, Lord, like this is in your hands. Like I gave it everything I had. I did all I could do. And it's up to you, just kind of like with the run back in the very beginning of this, like, oh, hey,
Mm.
I'm going to let kind of that decide it. And I'm still going to do this thing no matter what. I'm going to ride it till the wheels fall off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So they do the final Reaper, and like my roster number was 265, and they're like going down the line. The dude behind me was 267. We were the only guys left at like the 260s,
Mm-hmm.
and they're calling it off. And I hear 26, and my heart stops. And then they called 267, and I was like, oh, I was like, thank the Lord. But I was also
Dang.
like, 267 was a good dude, so I was kind of bummed to see him go.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, and then they're just gone. So in total, they ended up selecting 92 of
Okay.
us.
Wow.
So we
Wow.
had a high selected class. Normally it's like
Mm-hmm.
around 60 to 70 dudes,
Mm-hmm.
but I would say we had a really good class. We had a really strong. There was a lot of strong guys in the class.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of strong dudes. A lot of dudes who could also run fast, but
Mm-hmm.
like it pays to be strong for team week because like you're carrying like 200 pounds on your back,
For
200
hours and hours and hours and
for
hours.
hours. For hours, you're
Yeah.
deadlifting
There's
total of like
with
hundreds of pounds.
as you're talking about all this stuff, I'm like, gym doesn't count. Like Anymore. Like, oh, cool, you did 3 sets of 10. You don't know nothing. I'm like
Yeah,
listening to. I'm like,
it puts it in a different
I need
it
to go
puts it in a
run a
different
couple
perspective.
miles. I'm gonna go run a couple miles with a backpack on. Like,
Yeah,
I don't even know if I would make it.
it's a different perspective. It really it really showed me it that's the hardest thing I've had to physically it was the hardest thing I've had to do to date, you know, and there will be harder things
Yeah.
I'll have to do in my army career going forward, but that really shows you how you respond when you're in those periods of just physical exhaustion. It shows you but the work you do prior to that, if it's in the gym, squatting, lifting, will help a lot.
Well, yeah, it'll
Yeah.
help. But that is pure mental endurance, like forcing your body to go beyond like what you thought it was capable of. That's
Oh yeah.
incredible.
It was all and like I said, the cold was definitely the hardest part for
Yeah.
so many dudes. That's where I lost the most weight. That's where I lost the most weight. It was just wild.
Wow.
Yeah, but mentally you just and I just kept telling myself mentally, I was like, well, this is what I've wanted to do for so long. And hold on, sorry. There we
You're good.
go. Wanted to do for so long, wanted to push through, and I was like, yeah, I'm not quitting this thing. I'm gonna
Hmm.
ride this, like I said, till the wheels fall off. And yeah, I did, and I was super stoked, really proud of myself, and just was
I was gonna
um,
ask what do you feel now? What do you think now? Now you've gone. I mean, because that is a rigid test.
mhm.
And so I guess I feel like I would feel almost invincible. Like, what else can you throw at me other than a
You,
bullet? But
other than a bullet,
other than a bullet,
you do feel that way because you see the dudes who haven't been selected yet, or anything like that, and you're just like, oh, I'm a little bit better than you. Um, you just kind of walk around. Check your text. Sorry,
hey, we don't edit the
sidebar.
podcast.
Yeah, we don't edit
Remember,
it. I'm just yelling
it's
at my dad right now. Sidebar. Um,
You mean Mr. Swift?
yeah, Mr. Swift, Mr. Swift's
Yeah.
over here. Yeah, you feel pretty dang invincible. You feel on top of the world. You ride the high for sure. Because you
Hmm.
look at the other dudes and you're like, oh, you haven't been selected yet. But no, but you still it is still a big thing. I still have so much to go through and so much to do to get to the final
Okay.
end. You still have to humble yourself and be very humble. But it does teach you a lot about yourself. It taught me a lot about me,
Hmm.
and who
Yeah.
I am.
What'd you learn about yourself?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm saying goodbye to my nephew real quick. Bye,
Say
buddy.
goodbye.
Um, yeah, that I learned to trust the Lord in so many ways that I don't think I'd have in the past because going through it all, I had so many other verses memorized and everything, but the one verse I said probably a million times was Proverbs 3:5. For some reason, that was the one I was just in my head, and it's just trusting the Lord with all your heart. And I would just say that. And I was like, lean not on my own understanding. Because there was a few times I thought I was going to get dropped. I was like,
Mm.
well, I'm going to get dropped for that. And I was like, well, I just kept saying, trust in
Mm.
the Lord, lean not on this.
Yeah.
And I was very confident in that. I was so confident, not that I was going to get selected, but that I was going to be okay. And it was confidence based off of
Wow.
everything I had gone through before, and stuff conversations I'd had with my dad prior to selection about him believing in me and him trusting me and him confident that I'll get through it and believing it,
Yes.
and everybody else and everybody who's praying for me,
Mhm.
and I was like, is this braggy? But I was like, no, it's okay to brag on the Lord, because it talks about that in the end. This is not me. This is the Lord getting me through this and walking me through this. And I'm confident in him that as long as I put out and do my part, he'll show up and do the rest. I think that's one thing I learned as well. It's you can't just be oh, I'm just gonna kind of sandbag this and oh, the Lord will help me get through selection. It's no, you have to put
Do
out
your
as
part.
much, do your part, 100. And I think I really learned that. And I I didn't even pray that much when I was out there because you're just so focused on this.
And you were too cold to
and
say words.
too cold to say words, so
Help,
focused
help,
on the
help,
end
help,
goal.
help,
Help,
help.
help, help me, please. And um, I would say that like when I was tired, and I'd like honestly I was on the verge of tears multiple times, just
Mm,
from like just pure everything. I was just like, okay, help, 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 because you're like deadlifting, carrying all this crap, like it's wild. Um, and I had like I didn't pray, and it wasn't because I was like, oh, I'll be okay, but it was like I knew there were so many people behind me praying for me, and like
hmm.
like not low key, like high key. I felt those prayers like help me get through a lot of different
So
things. And
good.
I felt this like this drive and this momentum to be like, all right, like I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna keep putting it out. And I never felt defeated. There were a few times mentally where I felt defeated, but I like reached out to one of the guys that I like knew was a Christian because we had talking a little bit, and oh my gosh, excuse me, he was an officer.
Hmm.
And I was like, hey man, like struggling after it was during lane nav. I was like, hey, struggling after lane nav, definitely fighting a lot of mental stuff. And he's like, oh, I was like, hey, will you pray for me out there? And he's like, oh, absolutely. So he was like, we talked a little bit, in that just like a little bit of fellowship,
Hmm.
I could tell lifted my spirits, and I was like ready to go. And then
Yeah.
I went out day two and found out all the points I needed to find. And and like on my last point when I got there, like the dude was there. His name's Harry. He was
Hmm.
there, and he was like, "Oh, I was praying for you, dude. Did you get all the points?" And I was like, "I did." And he's like, "Yes."
Mm,
So that was awesome. So yeah, I learned so much about trusting the Lord, doing your
hmm.
part, putting the work in, and
You
like when
sound
it's
more
time,
confident.
yeah, I feel very confident more in who I am. Like,
And so, yeah, the one of the questions I wanted to ask you, all that stuff from the last 4 years that preceded this trial that you overcame and you pushed through, that you conquered,
mhm.
do you feel like you also conquered whatever was holding on to you and dragging you down in the last 4 years?
Yeah, yes, in a lot of ways. I remember this. So like this time exactly last year, I was in airborne school, and I remember on my birthday, which is Sunday. Um, I don't know. Your kid better he's either holding off or your kid's coming around that time. Um,
Yeah. No comment. No comment.
no comment.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, I remember just like reading Isaiah, and just like the Isaiah where it's like this is the year of the Lord's favor,
Yeah, Isaiah
and I
61.
just
Hmm.
61, yep. And I just felt that, and I was reading it last year at airborne school exactly at this time, and I was like, because before, like you said, so defeated in a lot of different things, and I was like, all right, like what's gonna happen? And I was like, I just need to freaking win, and I've been thinking
Hmm.
that for a long time, and I've had little wins throughout those years, that like help you keep going and help
Hmm.
you like drive through, whether it's just like when I moved to San Diego, like finding that community and building that community was like a huge win, but also at the same time you're still going through like all this other crap that you're like fighting through. It's like nice to have that. But anyway,
Hmm.
I was like, all right, this is the year of like the Lord's favor, and I kept that in the back of my mind going through everything. And now, like literally a year later, I've been selected. Like my knee's fine. Like I did, like, oh, at selection, I barely felt my knee. I kind of forgot it was hurt. It didn't hurt at all. I didn't like when I was doing all the runs and rucks, like I didn't feel it. Pain, nothing. It was wild. I forgot it was hurt. And I was like, oh yeah, like I better be careful. Like my knee's kind of hurt. But I was like, I didn't feel it at all. Like I was just like 100% ready to go. So that was like definitely a blessing and a huge thing. Um, so yeah, that I felt like it got me through a lot of that, and a lot of that stuff is behind. And now that I have like a direct, clear path of where I'm going, because before selection, you don't know what's going to happen. Like I could have been kicked out and been somewhere completely different, but now I'm here with what I wanted to do. And it's like definitely such a clear path. I have a clear vision. I know what job I'm going to have now. I know what I have to do, that I have to finish the Q course, which is the qualification course, which is the next year of schooling I will go through before I even get the title of special forces. Like I said,
Hmm.
like selection is just the application to get into the school.
Yeah.
So I still have so long, so much to learn, so much to experience and do.
Yeah.
But Yeah,
Yeah,
it
but you're
definitely.
bringing like a new Ethan in though, because I mean, you conquered suffering is what you did.
Yeah.
And there is something for men, especially when life's beats you up. The win you need is like you need to suffer a lot and win is what you really
Yes.
need,
You
and
need it. You need to like.
it has to be physical.
You have
Like
to fight through it and win. Like you have to be like,
mhm,
I'm not leaving. Like
until you bless
almost
me.
until you bless me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like until I die.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's extreme. But like until you bless me, it's just like that with like Jacob when he wrestled,
Hmm.
and got the new name. So yeah, there is definitely something to that. And but also at the same time, like that, and then I'm like exactly what you said. It's like, okay, I did that. I'm like, what's next? Like, what can I do next?
Hmm.
And it's so cool to be surrounded by a bunch of guys in the Q course as well who are like have that mentality.
Hmm.
Like my buddy I went to selection with, he signed up for a 30-mile race in
Wow.
less than a month. And he's like, I've never
Hmm.
ran 30 miles before. He's like, I've done a lot of stuff in selection where I've like walked close to that with like 80 pounds on
Hmm.
my back. So why wouldn't I
Yeah.
be able to run it? I'm
Right.
like, yeah, you're absolutely right. So you suffer through that much, you conquer all of that, and then you just like you want to keep going with it and you want to keep pressing through and moving on um,
Hmm.
through all of that stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah,
So
suffering
good.
suffering is a
Physical
wild
suffering.
thing, but it
It
teaches
is,
you so many
especially if you
things.
don't try to escape it.
Yep.
And I'm really starting to believe because I've just heard too many stories and had too many myself where I'm like, until you've wrestled and not given up, you have
Hmm.
no idea who you are. Like
Yeah.
your personality assessments don't matter until you have wrestled through suffering
Yeah.
and not given up. Because that's where you
Whether
figure out everything.
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, you love Teddy Roosevelt so much. Like that's what he did.
Sure do.
I mean, if you read any of his stuff, like he went through all that physical suffering and did that and walked out the other side. And it's
Hmm.
just such a learning, teaches you so much, that physical
I'm
suffering.
working on an essay about his suffering
Yeah, you are.
and how it made him who he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does. It really shapes you.
That's so good.
And it's like, it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to do what I did to do it. There's so many other
And
ways. And it's, yeah,
go climb a mountain.
climb a mountain.
Hmm.
Or like you said one time on one of your podcasts, I think you said like go walk 10 miles or something like that.
Go walk 10 miles. Yeah. Hmm. Or you can do what I'm trying to do this summer and run a triathlon.
Yeah, just like it's like always seeking that out, trying to find that like getting into
Mm.
that period where you're like, wow, this is gonna really hurt and suck, but I'm just gonna like keep going one step at a time, you
Yeah.
know?
Amen. Then speaking of, so we're doing this group triathlon in
Yeah.
July,
Uh-huh.
and one of the guys that's doing it with us was in the army. He did 4 years in the army,
Nice.
and uber fit guy, real
Hmm.
fit. And we decided we're going to do these partner run intervals, 800-meter intervals.
Disgusting.
Yeah. So well, up into 3.2 miles. So he went, and then his brother went, who was also really fit, and then me, it was like 1-to-1,
Hmm.
and I went with him on his first run, and I was trying to keep up with him because I no one told us we were sprinting. We were gonna like go fast, but he shot out of the gates like a rocket, and so
He's
I tried to
gone.
keep up with him. And his first lap, he beat me by 8 seconds.
Hmm.
I was crushed because I haven't been running as much as I would. Well, I don't run that much anyway. I need to run more. By the by the end of our workout, he was 4.5 minutes ahead of me.
That's wild,
He was
dude.
half a mile in front of
Yeah.
me, and
Yep.
we got to rest. I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
I was so I'm like, now I'm gonna just start running every single day, and well,
Yeah.
then I got to swim and all that stuff. And you know how fast I swim.
I, oh yeah, dude, you're
Yeah.
a
Regular
beast
shark,
whale,
huh?
dude. That was a fun day.
Yeah. But Ethan, before we hang up and
Hmm.
get off this call, is there anything else you'd like for anybody to know, or what you want to share?
Mm, no, I'd say I mean, like for me, like like I said, the big lesson was just trusting the Lord through that, no
Mm,
matter like what you're going through. Like
mm,
the job or whatever it is that's just kind of like sucking. Like seek out that physical suffering and just know that like if other people, I also learned how important it is to believe and not doubt. I'll go off on that tangent a little
Ooh.
bit. Um,
Yeah,
believe in
say
like
that.
what you're going to do and like what you're going to accomplish and not doubt yourself. And I think that's why Proverbs 3:5 is just stuck in my head so much. And I think, and there's also a verse in Joshua towards the end. I think it's like Joshua 21:25, where it's like, and all the promises the Lord spoke over Israel came true. So it's like, okay, you have to believe these things no matter how impossible they seem, they're going to come. Like
Mm,
I said, selection was that huge mountain in front of me, but I did believe I could get through, and my dad believed I could get through, and like everybody else did. And
mm,
that like believing and not allowing those kind of like doubts and those things of like, oh, like my personality will not fit down the road on like a Green Beret team or an ODA
mm,
or overseas or those things like that, or like, oh, I'm not, just that type of guy, or
mm,
and fill in the blank right there with that. So it's
yeah.
like believing no matter what that like, hey, I'm gonna go for this and not doubting it. And yeah, that I think I learned that a lot. And
Mm.
yeah, there
Can
was
I
my
ask you a
dad and I had
question?
a yeah.
Because you've talked about your dad a couple times. Did
Hmm.
did your dad believing in you, did that catapult you?
Absolutely.
Was that probably the most important
Um,
person to believe in you?
it that was pretty big. Yeah, it was pretty big, to have my dad believe in me, and then like having the support from like my girlfriend just being like, hey, like I'm here for you when you get back. Go do the thing. And I was like, all right,
Hmm.
like that, and then my dad as well. And it was a
Mm,
big thing, and I'll share a little bit about that, my testimony and that with my dad. But my mom had cancer, back in 2017. She's like fully healed and in remission now and everything. Praise the Lord. And my dad and like the rest of my family was kind of struggling with it, as we all were. But I had a lot of faith and I believed that I knew my mom was going to be well. And I
mm,
rode that for so long. And I remember like, because I mean, it was just my dad and I living at the house together at the time. And I would just keep telling my dad, I was like, Dad, like, I know mom will be okay. I know she's going to get through this. Like, I believe it. I have the faith for it. And he had lost his mom to cancer when he was my age, like his early 20s. So he knew that pain already.
wow.
And um, when my mom was like healed and in remission, he comes up to me and he's like, hey, Ethan, like, I just wanted to say, like, your faith and your believing helped me get through everything with my mom at the time. And that took me off guard. And I didn't know how to handle that. I for years I didn't know like how to handle that, or like I was like, oh, is that too much? Like he's putting too much emotional burdens on me to like do that. Like anyway, um, but that was always in the back of my head, and him saying like he believed in me to do that, like get through selection, he like knew I could do it, was huge. And then it was really cool, and it was a really special moment. Like when I got back from selection on a Friday, like you don't have your phone, nobody knows where you're at, nobody knows what you're doing, and I call my dad, and my dad, he's a man of very few words, but I call him and he answers the phone, and I'm like, "Hey, Dad." He's like, "Hey, Ethan," and he's just silent on the phone, and he doesn't say anything else. I'm like, "Hey, like, remember that time with mom when you said like my faith and my belief helped you get through everything with that?" And he goes, "Yeah, I sure do." And I go, "Well, hey, thanks for returning the favor, because your belief and everything helped me get through like this selection and that thing." And it was just like he was so stoked, and it was just like a really special moment in that bond that I had, um, with my dad. So that's why I said that, like believing you can do it and not doubting it, and believing the promises that have spoken over you, believing like those people who are important in your life have said these things over you, believing those will come to pass, is huge. And like, so yeah, I've learned what believing and trusting is kind of like through those times and those moments.
Wow. Dang.
Hmm.
I'm going to think about that one for a minute. And all of the dads listening, go back and re-listen to that and then cement that on your into your brain,
Mm.
because that's huge. My gosh.
It was huge.
Dang. Okay. I'm a little teary eyed over here, but it's fine.
I know, yeah, it's okay. You see
Uh,
me cry 1,000 times.
wow. Dang. Well, thank you for finishing off with that. And I think we're just going to leave it at that because that is a
Yeah.
powerful way to end. So, Ethan, proud of you. Thanks for coming
Thank you,
on.
Keaton. Of course. Thanks for having me again.
And to everyone else, I hope you love this episode. If you did, please share this with a friend or two. Share it with a dad who needs to hear that last 10 minutes. And until next time, this is the Man I Want to Be podcast.